Welcome to a glimpse behind the scenes into the gardens, the farm, the greenhouse, and the studio, where so many of the flowers for our weddings and events come to life. Throughout the seasons here in New England, I'll take you along for the journey, sharing not only what we grow, but the heart and intention that go into every stem. Tulip season starts for us here in mid-April, all the way through the beginning of June. We try to plant a variety of tulips early, mid, and late season to keep the harvest going. I will say we grow fewer tulips than before because it's just so hard to compete with Dutch product, especially on a wholesale level. Although I just love tulips, especially the doubles, which you don't always see at the wholesale market, or at least not the varieties that I like to grow. We also battle a lot of deer pressure at our field in Carver, so I make a little mini net that I put over them with small hoops, and when they're really actively growing, about to bloom, I have to go out there every day to remove the netting, and then at the end of the day put the netting back on. So they can be very labor intensive for me. This is one of my favorite varieties, Foxtrot. Even though it blooms a little short, I still love it. It's great to use in centerpiece work. And goats. Our goats love the tulips. So any tulips we pull out of the field at the end of the season, or tulips we just don't use, Billy and Tilly get to enjoy them. Narcissus is another one of my favorite spring crops. I love the doubles. Anything white, double, or anything with a peach or pink center I think is really nifty. Bridal Crown comes to mind, Replete, and Sir Winston Churchill. Those are probably my three favorites. And these bunches are heading into the New England Wholesale Flower Exchange to Kelly Wholesale, to be sold to New England and Boston area florists. This is another one of my favorite tulip varieties called Dreamer. Really pretty pink and fully double. And we've also got some of our spring CSA bouquet examples here. Some beautiful spring pastels and some brighter colors, and we also mix in some hellebores there. Oh, ranunculus. How I love to grow you and I hate to grow you. They're a little bit dicey to grow without a dedicated tunnel. I've tried low tunnels with limited success. I've also crate grown them, but now I plant them out in very early spring and cross my fingers. The main varieties that I grow now are the Tecolote variety because I love getting some of those single-petaled ones. And I also grow some of the Romance. They're pricey, but they're worth it. I also grow a limited amount of anemones. Many of them just come back perennially in the gardens. Take a trip with me inside the greenhouse. This is where we start all of our seedlings, typically in late February, early March. I minimally heat it, and when I say minimally, I keep it just above freezing because propane is expensive. I also store all of our mother chrysanthemum plants from which we take cuttings in the greenhouse over the winter. Come spring, they get kicked outside. Other spring crops here include Deutzia, Mock Orange, Snowball Viburnum, Bleeding Hearts, Spirea, and Lilacs. We harvested all of these goodies for a very white wedding that we had this spring. This wedding also had a pop of peach or apricot, so I had the opportunity to use some of the pansies that we grew in the greenhouse for cocktail hour bud vases. Outside of ranunculus, I think roses are probably the second most requested flower that I get from brides. And several years ago, I made the investment from Weeks Roses to buy in, I think it was around 50 rose shrubs. So I bought them in bare root and got them potted up in the greenhouse and eventually out into the gardens. And frankly, I probably have about half of them left. Roses in New England are a tough go, but the ones that I do have left are incredible. Many have reverted back to the original rootstock, so they're just that bright, deep red color, at which point I pull them out. In the future, I see an unheated hoop house from Farmer's Friend hosting all of my roses. Each year we host an annual plant sale in early May where I offer up a little bit of everything that we're growing, from annuals and perennials to herbs, tomatoes, shrubs, roses, peonies, etc. Pansies were one of my mom's favorite flowers, and I can't get enough of them. They come in just about every color, and the softer the color, the more I seem to like them. Maybe it's because I do weddings. But this year I think I grew around 12 different varieties, and I'm saving a lot of the seed this year. Apparently, they come true to seed. Time will tell if that's true. Peony season for us begins at the end of May, beginning of June. How can you not love peonies? From a grower's standpoint, they are a set it and forget it kind of crop that requires really very little maintenance. We have a good mix of the fully double to single petaled varieties, and we've even got a fair amount of Ito peonies that come in some beautiful apricot and pale yellow colors. And here's a glimpse of some of the other flowers that we grow as we move into summer. If you're curious about any of the names, I've tried to list them there with each photo or video. Enjoy! Lily of the Valley, of course, is a spring crop for us, and I am very lucky that my house came with Lily of the Valley when we bought it, so I didn't have to plant it. And actually they've spread quite nicely over the years, kind of taking over the Pachysandra bed, but I'm not mad about that. Zinnias are truly one of the workhorses here on the farm. Available in just about every color possible, even pastels now, thanks to the efforts of a few who are breeding new colors. I grow the tall ones, I grow the short ones. I even grow some of the bedding varieties. I love them all. Although if I had to pick a favorite, it's the queen limes, both red and orange. And this is a very groggy shot of a 3 a.m. drive into Boston to drop off my flowers at the New England Wholesale Flower Exchange. I also sell to a select few florists down here on the South Shore and on the Cape who reach out for flowers on a weekly basis. Sometimes they'll just say, hey, have you got anything apricot? Or do you have anything purple? Or I'm looking for cosmos, etc. In terms of greenery, I grow a lot of lemon verbena every year, along with chocolate scented geraniums, which I just take cuttings from each season. We also grow jasmine in the greenhouse, so we have a monster plant in there that I cut off of all year. And autumn clematis is in the front gardens. And then we also have loads and loads of 9-bark between the Carver farm and the house gardens here. We have, I think it's 3 different varieties. And then I also love to cut off of our limelight hydrangeas, even before they start to bloom. In late May, early June, their foliage is perfect. Now, I am not a lover of the lily, but Martagon lilies, I covet. On to fall and dahlias. I prefer to grow the ball varieties, but of course I have to have cafe au laits in the lineup. We close out our farming season with chrysanthemums. I grow some of the heirloom varieties as well as some of the more standard varieties, both inside the greenhouse and in the field and the gardens as well. I think it's really important to flex your creative muscles constantly outside of the grind of constant weddings. So playing with leftovers is a great way to do that. Doing styled shoots is another great way to do that. So I'm going to share with you some of the photos and videos that I've taken of doing both of those things over the last few years. And here is a peek at my humble little studio, which sits on our property here in Kingston, Mass. It's essentially a shed, and I told them just add as many windows as possible because light is, of course, really important when you're designing. And then we've got a split unit AC heater in there that keeps it really cold in the summer and pretty warm in the winter. And I will close out with some photos of our recent wedding work, both bouquets, ceremony pieces, some centerpieces. And then at the very end, I'm quite proud to announce that we were featured in Montana Bride magazine last year, I believe it was. We do a fair amount of weddings out in Montana, which is where my folks live. So I'm able to work out of the pole barn on their property there. So we can go up to Whitefish, down to Bozeman, Big Sky, out to Missoula, because my dad is centrally located in Montana. So everything's just a few hours away. Thanks so much for listening along if you've made it this far, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Slow Flower Show. I'm Deborah Prinzing, and today I'm so happy to welcome Julie Raymond of Bittersweet Gardens. And welcome to the podcast, Julie.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I am too. I'm happy that we finally got this on the calendar. And you've been a member of Slow Flower Society for several years, and I've just been tracking you, and something just connected with me when I saw that you had some background in growing flowers in Chelmsford, where I remember going as a child with my parents because my father was a Baptist minister and he had a church there. So that's all I remember. But put yourself on the map for us.
That piece, yeah.
I know, because you're not in Chelmsford right now, right?
No, I'm not. I was for many years. I was there, for almost a decade, farming alongside kind of an old-time farmer, Phil Jones, who I don't believe is in business anymore. I think he is retired. But yeah, now I am in Kingston, Massachusetts. So we are about 30 to 40 minutes south of Boston, depending on a Boston traffic day. Could be an hour.
I looked you up on the map. It's kind of at the gateway to like Plymouth and Cape Cod. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So we're sort of in a sweet spot where we can get up to Boston fairly quickly and also down to the Cape. So yeah, we're in a great coastal location
Oh
down
my
here.
gosh, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm near the coast too, here in Puget Sound, and there is something quite lovely about having that maritime influence on your gardens and your flowers. So I want to
Absolutely.
hear all about it. Can you give us a snapshot of Bittersweet Gardens as it is now? Because I know you've had
Sure.
some of a what of a path, and we'll talk about your path. But right
Yeah.
now, how does the business? How is it structured?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I consider myself a farmer florist, and my primary audience is weddings. So we do anywhere from 20 to 30 weddings per year.
Wow.
Occasionally, we'll do some corporate gigs here and there, say if we're recommended by a venue. But then also any excess flowers that we have from the farm, we market to the wholesale market in Boston. There's one broker in there, Kelly Wholesale, who is kind enough to sort of take any excess that we may have that week, or say everything I have that's blooming is pink and I have a white wedding that weekend and I can't use any of the pink. So I just reach out to them and they'll typically take in what I have. We also have a very small bouquet subscription program. So we do a spring CSA, we do a peony share, which seems to get shorter every year. It's 2 or 3 weeks, and a summer share, and then a fall dahlia share. Um,
Yeah, I was checking out your website. So you're right in the middle of the summer share, I'm guessing, right now.
yes, yeah. Well, we've actually just kind of started it. It pushed back a little bit this year because we were sort of waiting and waiting on, usually when my zinnias get going, that's when I start that up. So yeah, we have just started that. Yeah. And that runs for 6
Well,
weeks.
let's just talk about that briefly because I was really intrigued with you have a 6 week summer flower share, and it's grower's choice, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
best of the best in any week, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that is $180 if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So it averages out $30 a week. That's super affordable for someone who
Yeah.
wants local flowers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of who it's catered toward, is a lot of the locals that, for example, will drive by my home property where all the flowers are. We're not open to the public, but that's a good way for them to get in and, you know, reap the benefits of the little flower farm down the road. So yeah.
But Julie, you have them pick it up from you, or I
Yeah.
was a little confused by how that
Yeah,
works.
so we assemble the bouquets each week, and then they come in on Thursday or Friday, to pick them up. So yeah, the bouquets are wrapped and ready to go.
Mm, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe I know you're going to put a little collage video together
Yeah.
for us, so you'll show us
Yeah.
some of those.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
And that sort of segues into your dahlia shares, which it looks like it's 5 weeks. It's just 1 week less.
Yes.
Does that give you enough time to like your wedding dahlias demand competes with your flower share dahlia
A
command
little bit
demand?
too. And
Yeah.
it depends on what a lot of our fall brides are looking for too. Occasionally we'll have someone that doesn't want dahlias. So,
What?
I know,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, it can a little bit, but we grow enough that we can kind of, tread on both sides of the coin. So we can provide the shares and the brides as well. Yeah.
Well, Julie, how big is the Bittersweet Gardens operation in terms of land and acreage? Like, describe. Are you all field grown? Do you
Tiny,
have?
tiny.
Okay.
So it is, I feel like I'm a great example of you can grow a lot in a little space. So our home property sits on an acre of land, and on the acre we've got, of course, my studio, we've got a big barn, we have a commercial greenhouse, and then essentially a ton of raised beds. So there's probably 13 or 14 raised beds throughout the property, most of which are at the front. Um, and then I have a piece of leased land, which is in Carver, Massachusetts, just, 1 or 2 towns over, 10 minutes away. And so
Okay.
there I lease an even tinier piece of land. It's probably maybe a fifth or a sixth of an acre. I mean, it's huge for
For you, for
growing. I
one
mean, it's
person.
100-foot rows, maybe it's 200 feet wide. But over there, I grow a lot of perennials, and then a lot of row crops, the stuff that takes up a lot of room. So zinnias, cosmos, most of the dahlias are over there. And that's land where I can actually get my tractor out there, to till, at least initially. All of our tulips are there, and all of our narcissus are over there as well.
Wow. How did that come about? I mean, it's land access is something that I'm constantly finding myself talking about.
Yes. Well, so once we moved here about 13 years ago, and once I basically carved up all the beds and filled them up, I just said, I need more space. So I looked online and I got kind of lucky and found a local gal that was looking to lease. I mean, she has an 11-acre parcel of land, but there's one guy on the parcel that takes up most of it who has cattle. So I thought, well, let's just start small. So I've basically taken that little, sixth of an
Little
acre.
corner.
Yep, my
Yeah.
little corner. And slowly, over the last 4 years or so, I just keep adding more and more perennials to it, especially as I get older. Like,
Yeah. That's
do I?
amazing. So
Yeah.
there's some infrastructure, like you can get a tractor in there. Is it your tractor or do they
Yeah.
let you use theirs?
Yeah, no, it's our tractor. Yeah, we've
Okay.
got a little subcompact John Deere, which has been really helpful in terms of the rototiller, getting it all tilled
Prepped.
initially.
Yeah.
I will say I'm trying to go a little bit more no-till for the sake of the soil health. And I'm happy to say I haven't used it at all this year. It's
Wow.
just makes a lot more handwork.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I get in the zone, I don't mind it at all. Yeah.
And there's water access there, I'm
There
guessing.
is. So there is a pond there, which I pump out of, which is good and bad. It's great when it's working. This past week with the heat, it wasn't. And so I was doing a lot of hand watering in
Oh, bless
certain
your heart.
areas to keep a lot of the perennials, once they're established, they're fine.
Yeah.
It's just more of the annuals, like the
Yeah.
zinnias, the sweet peas, doing a lot of
Yeah.
hand watering there. But
Those
yeah.
thirsty divas.
Yep,
Wow.
exactly. Yep, yep.
How is it on your lifestyle? Like, do you get up in the morning and head out there immediately, or like how do you fit it into your day?
Yeah, I mean, my day will usually start at 5 or 6, and I usually will start with some admin work first. So answering emails or maybe doing a design document or a proposal. But I do try to get out there early-ish, especially once it gets hot. So
Yeah.
when it's really hot, I might work, 7 to 10 a.m. and then come in and do more admin and then go out again at dinner time and log a few
Wow.
more hours, till 8 when
Get the
it's a
golden
little.
hour for your Instagram post.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great. I mean, living where you farm is, of course, an option for a lot of people, but then
Mhm.
in a way, having a chance to separate yourself from the constant demand of that, those hungry and thirsty flowers is sort of a break too.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things I think we need to talk about on your path to flowers. One is that like you said, you call yourself a farmer florist. Is that how you started, Julie? You have a really interesting background. I read about it on your
Yeah.
website, and I'd love to have you share that with people.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I guess I think it was rooted in social service. I mean, yes, I grew up my mom had beautiful garden beds at home. I just remember her zinnias as a kid, just being so attracted to all the bright colors. But after I graduated from college, I worked at the Pine Street Inn, which is probably New England's largest homeless shelter.
Oh, wow.
And I landed in a position as an activity specialist for a day program there, which worked with a dozen men in the shelter, all of whom had a major mental illness, most of
Mm.
which was schizophrenia. So it was a day program. I worked with a psychiatric nurse and a licensed social worker. And, their main goal was to find these men affordable housing in the community, get their health care needs addressed, make doctor's appointments for them, and then help them with daily adult living skills. And as the activities person, one of the activities that I said, well, let's grow a garden, So Pine Street Inn offered up the backyard of one of their permanent lodging homes in Jamaica Plain, and so we for many years grew a bunch of cut flowers there, and we'd go over 1 or 2 afternoons a week. The guys would grow the flowers with me, and we'd make bouquets and sell them back at the shelter to the staff.
Oh, I
We'd set
love
up
it.
Yeah, we'd set up a little table in the staff lunchroom, and then they would make some pocket change. So, it was a great model. There was a lot of, positivity from the guys about it, with a lot of the guys who some of whom were nonverbal,
Mm.
they were out there in nature and conversations would be sparked, or you'd learn, oh, Roy's grandmother from Alabama grew cosmos, and we didn't even know Roy was from Alabama. So it was little things like that
Oh
that,
my gosh, that's so touching.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So then I decided to go back to school and study horticultural therapy. So while I was still working at Pine Street Inn, I went back and did some postgraduate work at UMass Amherst in horticultural therapy. I didn't finish the degree because then life started and I started this gardening business in the city. And yeah, the next thing you know, I was off on the next portion of my journey, which involved, yeah, gardening in the city. And
Can we both be in the club of people who didn't finish their master's degrees?
yeah, right. You too.
Well, I got all the way through the Master's of Communications coursework at University of Washington, and then I got hired as a journalist, and I was like,
Oh,
this is more important to me to work as a journalist than to do a thesis. So
yeah.
I
Yep.
keep thinking some year they're going to give me an honorary degree, but that will never happen.
It could happen. You never know.
If you're listening, UMass.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a side conversation. But
Yeah.
life got in the way in that you obviously relocated but gardening was the basis for what you were doing
Yeah,
before flower farming?
yeah, I was doing both. It was crazy. I was doing, back when there were yellow pages, I just had a little ad in the yellow pages for, I think it was interior plants, because that was the first account I did, was watering plants in a restaurant. So I gained a lot of interior plant accounts in corporations and businesses where you go in and maintain plants. And then I'd get asked to do window boxes, or can you do some cut flower arrangements for the front desk? And then I went off and studied landscape design at Radcliffe. So that was my next part of, my gardening journey.
Building the layered cake. I love
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. So I did that for many years, probably a decade. And then as my friends started getting married, oh, could you do my wedding flowers? And yeah, from there I sort of got, it's probably the last 13 years or so that I've been mostly full-time doing wedding flowers and dropped most of the gardening clients.
So I'm just curious, from early on when you were being asked to design weddings, did you always have a kind of a priority of using the flowers you grew in your designs, or sourcing locally, or how did that
Yeah,
evolve?
it was both, because I had I farmed on little pieces of land on the North Shore. I was in North Reading and Boxford. I was friends with a vegetable farmer guy who farmed parcels all over the place. And so he'd always be like, "Hey kid, you want some land? I've got a little bit." So I would,
Cute. I love
yeah,
it.
I would try to incorporate as many flowers as I could. But back then I was really a newbie and there was no interwebs. I think,
How did you find
I,
people to
yeah,
source from?
I had Lynn's Flower Farmer book, back then, to teach myself, but I would use mostly my zinnias, to be honest, and then I'd be at the flower market sourcing whatever else I needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I
But
tried.
that kind of gave you that foundation as a designer, I would imagine. Um, I love it. You say you've got a couple statements on your website that we'll share the link with people, but really jumped out at me. One is that you write about the science and design of flowers, and I think you've alluded to this with both your academic horticulture and design pursuits are coming together now at Bittersweet Gardens, and
Yeah,
it gives you a lot of credibility with your clients. They can trust that you know what you're talking about when you say
yeah,
this is in bloom, or this isn't, or this won't hold up, or you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I can really geek out over the science of things. And sometimes I give people too much information and they're like, I just want to know if it's available. I feel like, well, it might be if, the moon is high and we haven't had a drought. But yeah, I do
No.
really like the science end of things.
Well, I was just talking about this last week when I visited Gretel Adams at Sunny Meadows in Columbus. It was like, if you have a design mindset, a designer's mindset, it does influence how you are a grower in terms of what you're choosing to grow. And I'm guessing for
Oh,
you now,
absolutely.
with that many weddings a year, are you custom growing for weddings, or how are you
Yes.
making it all come together?
Yes, I am really trying to do that. And so a lot of that takes place in the off season, of course. A lot of the inquiries will come in the fall. And so I basically take a look at color palettes, um, what people are sending me in photos or through their Pinterest boards. This year seems to be the year of amaranth, the green hanging tassel amaranth, so it's grow a lot of that. I saw a lot of that in photos. But yeah, and it all depends on what's in vogue.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are certain things that probably won't go out, like zinnias and cosmos. I always see a lot of those, and I push a lot of those as well, because I just love them. But yeah, I'm definitely informed by what brides are asking for, and I pay a close attention to what's in their Pinterest boards. But I
Mm.
also try to push the narrative a little bit as well. If someone comes to me and says they want white roses and baby's breath, I'm probably not your florist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes,
Also, you have your reliable dahlias that you love. And so those are probably, I mean, how many dahlias are you growing at that
well, this year,
annex?
not as many. This year, I'm probably at 400, 450. Yeah. In years
That's a
past,
lot to me.
yeah, yeah. In years past, I tried 1,200 one year. It was just too much. Yeah. Yeah.
But from a design point of view, are you trying to keep kind of in that ball, small, decorative window and not the dinner plates and
Except for the cafe au laits. I feel like
oh,
those aren't going anywhere. But yeah, I do grow the cafes still. But yeah, most ball varieties are perfect for design work in terms of centerpiece, even bouquets. Yeah, the
yeah.
dinner plates are really hard to work into bouquets.
Yeah. Yeah, but
But they're close.
the color, I mean, there's comparable colors
Yeah,
in the smaller dahlias. So
yeah.
but you have to kind of get people to that point where they're not just fixating on one cultivar, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And most are not. I do have a lot of brides that are gracious to say, you do what you do. Here's just the colors that I like.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So Julie, what would be a typical wedding in terms of size or personals versus reception and event flowers? How what's your ideal perfect wedding?
Yeah. I tell you what, I feel like a mid-size wedding, um, I can do alone and I can do in my sleep almost. So
Oh,
say 4 bridesmaids, 12 centerpieces, an arbor,
just turn it
uh,
on.
cocktail pieces. Yeah, and it's great, and I love to do those. Um, I probably have 3 or 4 larger weddings every year, where let's say it's a 200 plus guest count or it's a
Right.
really high-end venue. So every now and then I'll get a few of those, which is great because I love a challenge or, putting together a team. And often with those, it's just more about being organized,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
set up and not so much more difficult, but you really just have to be on your game.
It's just project management, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are the venues near you? Because I'm assuming that area is a destination wedding central, like
Yes. So
vineyards and
it's
stuff.
yeah, it's a little all over the place. I still do a lot up in Boston. Um, I I do a fair amount at the Boston Public Library. That I feel like that's probably 25% of my weddings.
Oh my gosh, I bet, is it an old building? It must be
Oh, it's
gorgeous.
beautiful. Yeah, it's the first public library in the nation. So it's, imported marble from Italy and it's grand. It's really
Okay.
a special, special place.
Share a few photos of that one of
Yeah,
those.
I
I'd love
will.
to
I
see it.
will.
If you have permission to use the
Yeah,
photos.
yeah.
Wow.
Um, but I also there's several beautiful venues on the South Shore, like the Red Lion Inn is another, I think, very charming venue. Sort of an old wood barn feeling, but gorgeous chandeliers hanging. Um, and then, we'll get some in Plymouth, like the 1620 Winery is a neat building where they actually do
Wow.
produce their own wine. And then, of course, we'll get some Cape inquiries. Even Newport, we'll do a couple down in Newport, Rhode Island, each year.
A little bit
But
of travel is involved.
yeah, a little bit. I feel like we're sort of an hour everywhere, whether it's Newport or Boston or Cape with Cape traffic.
Well, I mean, think about the population density. You really can't say you have competition because there's more demand than there are farmer florists probably.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I say I think there's enough work for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
wrote on your website that you describe your style as loose organic florals that look lush, ethereal, and just picked from the garden. The photos on your gallery really show that. It's it's a nice definition, and it means that if someone wants a really formal ballroom wedding, maybe they'll
Yeah.
self-select out and not
Yeah.
contact you because
Yeah.
you can do that, but it probably doesn't like make
Yeah.
your heart
No,
sing.
I do. I tell brides sometimes I am literally out in the garden in my nightgown the morning of their wedding, cutting that Cosmo at the perfect stage or the Dahlia or something. So yeah, I mean, it often is, especially for the bridal bouquet, picked that morning,
Mm,
6 a.m. in the garden. So yeah,
mm.
yeah,
I love it. I do want to ask you about the wholesale sales to Boston Wholesale Flower Exchange because my understanding is that's a really long established wholesale market in the Northeast, right?
yeah, it is. It has been I mean, when I started in the 90s, I think it had probably even been there another 30 years before that. Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have an emphasis on local flower farming. They're not like a co-op or anything,
No,
right?
no, they're not. They're not. Although, I feel like I've seen in the last several years a trend towards buying from local growers. So I will see some local product in there. I mean, granted, there's also been an explosion of flower growers, in the
Yeah,
last, 5 to 10 years.
yeah.
So it's great to see, peonies that come from Western Mass but
Mhm.
yeah, I think I just established a relationship by buying from them, over the years of just
One of the vendors there, is that what it
yeah.
is? Or
Yep,
tenants?
Kelly Wholesale, yeah.
Do
Yeah.
they just take whatever you have is on a consignment, or they just flat out say they'll take it?
Usually they'll just flat out take it. I usually run it by them first though, saying, "Hey, here's what I've got." Um, I think there's been 1 or 2 times where and I always tell them, "If you don't sell it, let me know," or something,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want them to have to take the risk. I think there's been 1 or 2 times where I brought something in that didn't fly. But for the most part, yeah, things move there. I feel like people are hungry for the local
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I mean, just to have that relationship gives you this like safety net or insurance policy that you have very little waste. Very little is going in the
Yes.
compost pile with
Yeah, I
this.
am very grateful for that. Yeah.
I
I
love that. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yes, absolutely.
When is the end of your season? Do you happen to do mums after the dahlias? I'm just
So
curious.
it's funny, I was just in my greenhouse this morning looking at all the mums that need to get in the ground.
Oh
So,
no.
yeah, so I am kind of a sucker for the mums, but I will tell you, I feel like every year they're the crop that gets ignored or, "Oh, I didn't get you planted." And so, of course, now I have a big bed full of mother mums that I
Mm,
take cuttings off of and have
mhm.
great intentions to plant every year. But slowly each year I've got one bed that is almost all chrysanthemums now. But yes, I do. But it's just like this time of year is when I get a little exhausted.
Thanks for making time for us today. Wow.
No, where I just
I
look at them and I'm like, "I gotta plant you. I promise I'm gonna plant you this weekend."
Well, okay. If you have weddings that are into October, that probably is a factor.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
maybe you could do I don't know, 3-week mum share or something like that if you
Yeah, that's
overplan.
that's not a bad idea. I feel like moms are somehow the redheaded stepchild, though. Sometimes I'll say, "And chrysanthemums," and then they'll be, "Oh, I really don't like chrysanthemums." But I think a lot of people are maybe just used to the grocery store run of the
Totally.
mill
Yeah.
chrysanthemums, and I'm like, "Well, you haven't seen Seaton's J'adore or, the cafe au lait of chrysanthemums." So,
Exactly. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
there's some education that could probably happen there.
Yeah. If they just saw how you use mums in a bridal bouquet, it would
Yeah,
change their minds because they don't even know what that's
yeah.
what it is.
Yeah,
Wow.
especially some of those spider moms, yeah.
So then how does how do you transition when the first frost hits and when is that and
Yeah.
do you do
So,
anything in the off season?
yeah, so for us, first frost is usually late October, sometimes early November.
Mhm.
Um, usually a push to get the dahlias dug, or at least the ones that I've decided I'm going to save. One year I left all the yellow ones in the field because I was like, there was no call for yellow. Nobody wanted yellow. And then we had a mild winter and all the yellow ones came back up in the field.
Guess what? All those shares, people in the shares program were getting yellow.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, you're like just on the probably the zone border where you could take a risk occasionally, but then every couple of years
yes.
you'd get zapped.
Yeah, I feel like if we leaf mulch them and covered them, and I did do that 2 years ago, and the majority of them did come back. But usually I divide store, because you can increase your production that way.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So that happens, probably for most of November, and I do a lot of that work in the greenhouse. So we've got some place to store them and lay them out and let them dry and cure properly. And then come December, there's usually 1 or 2 December weddings, but often you go into proposal time, and even in November and September, you're talking to a lot of brides that are booking for the following year. So it's a lot of proposals and phone calls and
Well, one thing I was really intrigued by is I saw recently you were part of a workshop on navigating weddings as a farmer florist. And I don't know if we've covered everything, but I'd love to have you just share some of your observations that you wish other people would think about before they dive into doing weddings. If they're beginners or if they are longtime growers who've decided to, jump in.
Yeah, yes, I did a recent workshop on that for CMAP. And I focused on a little bit of everything from landing the client or even attracting the right kind of client, and maybe how you can use social media or styled shoots sort of to put your style or your niche or your
aesthetic out there.
Out there, so that you're attracting the right kind of clients that you want to work with. And then landing the gig, through your proposal, how you present it. Do you share a design document? Do you not? And then once you've landed the gig, how to choose what to grow and how to schedule it. So for me, that involves a lot of spreadsheets. So, this bride has this color palette and what can I be growing in June that will, nail that for her. And then just scheduling it and doing a lot of calendar work. This is a 90-day crop, so I need to work backwards and make sure that I seed it on this date. And of course, Mother Nature plays into that a little bit too. So best laid plans don't always work, but it was just a little bit of soup to nuts, how you land the client and then how to choose what to grow, where you are, which might change a little based on your zone. But
well, you're kind of just giving people the basics to start thinking about. And do you think you'll do a follow-up like a coaching or a more extensive workshop series?
So I am, and I worked on this all last winter, but I have an ebook or an e-course that I'm hoping to launch this fall, again, when I get a little more. The whole course is written. It's just the back end piece of it I've got to put together, which is the website and the landing page and the funnel and how people reach you. So I do have a course coming out this fall, which, if you follow me on Instagram or sign up for emails, you'll certainly be the first to find out about that. But we're calling it Farm to Fet.
I love it.
Yeah, Farm to Fet. So sort of the wedding blueprint for farmer-florists, a decade of all of my mistakes or scrambling that can really shortcut people's, efforts to do that.
Okay, will you let us know when that's out? We'll let everyone know, but for sure in our show notes, we'll put a link for people to sign up for your newsletter because that's probably how they're going to hear about it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Julie, I wanted to ask you about your business name. You said that we could talk about Bittersweet Gardens. I mean, it's sort of a hot topic, and I'm just wondering how do you handle the people who think that you're promoting an invasive species?
Well, it's funny. So, back when I was scrambling for a name, gosh, 25 years ago. My husband, who I was dating at the time, said, how about bittersweet? He's like, you love those colors. You love anything that vines. And I said, well, but it's an invasive vine. You're not even really supposed to pick it. And he said, exactly. Your business will be invasive. You will be everywhere. You will. So he sort of sold it to me that way. I'm like, now that you think, yeah, okay.
I
Yeah.
love that. Well, I mean, the name Bittersweet is something that I find uh, it's very literary. It has so many
Yeah.
so many meanings. So I love that. You have the beautiful illustration, botanical
Yeah.
illustration on your logo.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I discovered this a couple years ago when we did a story about native plants that can be an alternative to invasive species. And I learned that there's an American bittersweet. So
There
it
is.
comes
Yeah.
out of the prairie states. I don't know how it would do in Massachusetts, but
Yeah.
people should check into that.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find a link to that story.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you don't want the haters coming after you, Julie.
No, you certainly don't. That's for sure.
I love your husband's putting a
I
little
You put a
sparkle on
positive
that.
spin on that. Yeah, I was like, all right, sold. But I do like the name. And, flowers are kind of bittersweet. They're gorgeous, but they're only here for so long and they do die. And so it made a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
That
Yep.
is so cool. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, you're farming in one of my favorite places on the planet. I did live on the North Shore in Hamilton, Wenham area from 6th grade to 10th grade. And I have very, very fond memories of those times. And my husband went to Harvard and he spent a lot of time in Cambridge, undergrad and law school. So we got to get back and visit. And
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to have you down. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
literally as far away as possible from you, but
Yeah, you
we'll
are.
try to make it. But I just love hearing your story and how you've kept your two passions blended in. Like you probably could go off and just do design and not grow, but your heart wouldn't sing as much.
I
You'd be lost.
Yes, I have to. And every year I say, "Oh, I'm gonna grow a little less," or yeah, no. Yep. Every
Not
year.
happening.
No, every year it's more and more. Or it's like once you do something and you learn it, then it's like, well, but there's a new crop. So I'm always every year trying one or two new to me crops that
Yeah.
I've never grown before. So
Yeah, I am growing green amaranth this summer, and they were given to me by a friend who has a nursery plant production business in Oregon. So she just sent me a
yeah.
flat. So I'm not sure how big they're going to get, but it is not an easy
No,
flower to design with. It's so long.
yeah. Yes, it has to be sitting somewhere and then just allowed to drape over the edge. I feel like I see them on a lot of, let's say, the corner of a bar or
Yeah.
yeah,
Would you put
entryway.
them in a bridal bouquet?
I would not, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would.
Yeah.
I think it's just distracting or overwhelming.
The scale.
Yeah, the scale and the eye would just go to that dripping element.
Note to breeders. Just grow the 12-inch ones. Then we'll all use them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention before we wrap up, Julie? I know we're going to show a little collage video to give people a sneak peek to your visual life.
Yeah, no, I just, gosh, I want to encourage more designers to grow. And for those of you who are growing and thinking about doing weddings, dip your toe, do a wedding for a friend maybe, or a family member. And try it out. But yeah, it's special to get to incorporate what you grow into a design that you deliver to a bride. Yeah.
And to take notes from your presentation you gave, if you do that wedding for a friend, make sure you get the photography because then you can start building
Absolutely.
The wedding tab on your website.
Yes. And don't do it for free. Charge something, but yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your time and your cost of goods have to be recaptured.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Julie.
And you're welcome.
Yeah. We'll make sure people know how to sign up to get the announcement when you start your course. It sounds like it's going to fit a demand and a need in the marketplace. And I'm really excited that you've taking decades of your experience and putting it into something that people can use to build their own businesses. So
Yes,
that's fun.
absolutely. Yeah, I sure hope so. Well,
Okay,
thanks.
Julie.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you so much. We'll talk
Yeah.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.